Hello friends, welcome to Salesforce CMAtics video session 122. Basically in today's video, we will actually try to understand the difference between data flow and recipe. And yeah, that's what we will understand. Maybe in next session, I can cover a bit more in details of what is the advantage of recipe over data flow. But I think in today's session, we will just understand what is the difference between data flows and recipe. I think in the previous two videos, somewhere down the line, I think I gave some hints when I was explaining, when I was going through the complete revision of all the nodes which we are using data flow, as well as the complete revision of all the nodes we use in recipe. I think somewhere down the line I gave some hints where I explained in bits and pieces, but maybe I have just thought to make this proper video where I will explain you whatever things we have learned or whatever nodes we have learned, what is the difference which we have between data flow and recipe. Okay, so let me go to Analytics Studio. Let me go to Data Manager and finally manage data flow. So let me open just one of the recipe section, like pre-session one, and maybe on the data flow side also I can open that one. Okay. Now, basically, firstly, we have to understand that the fact that we have dataset builder something on the recipe section, we have something called as, like if you go for this add input data, and let's say if you select one of the columns, which is nothing but this contact only, let's say. Let me select one minute, not opportunity. I will have to select something from external. Let me select something from internal, which is opportunity. Yeah, let me select this one. Now we have this option of related object. When you click on add input data, you get that option of related objects. Like something on the data flow, you just have to go for this data set builder. So the data set builder node, which we use on the data flow side, that is something you will get on related objects section on the recipe side when you click on that add input data. Okay, that's the first thing. So here basically you don't have a proper naming convention in recipe side, just like you have in data flow. Okay, let me just refresh this. That's not an issue. And then comes the second part is like, the data flow, you have all the nodes name present on above, right? So as you can see, you have all the nodes name present on the above. So whoever is the developer, or let's say if somebody is starting new, they won't have that much of issue if they are aware of what are the nodes which needs to be built on. On the recipe side, you don't have such options where by default you can see all the nodes. You always have to click on this add input data. If you are opening a new recipe, you will have the add input data somewhere over here, and from there you have to like navigate to that navigation button after that first node, and then you can actually select, you will get all the names of the nodes. Okay, something which by default you don't get on the recipe section, right? That's the next thing you can say. uh Thirdly, I mean, I won't count it as point wise, I will just tell all the difference which are there. Now the next point is that here we have something called as this SFDC digest and HMart node. I think we all know the difference where one of them brings the data from internal, one of them brings from internal, both external log, one of them brings from the CSV file or the data set. Now that is something when you click on this add input data, by default you will have this option of, you will get that option as a filter. Okay, so you have this option called Salesforce object external. So basically on the filter, this Salesforce object is nothing, which means your SFDC digest on data flow. This external candidate object is something which means the digest on data flow, and the CRMatics data set. So under CRMatics data set, you will also get that CSV file, because at the end of the day, the CSV file is nothing but it gets added as a data set in Salesforce CRMatics. Okay, so that's the. Now, the next part is like here, the append node. What you can do is like in one of the session we walked through. I think I can open that session very quickly. I guess it's somewhere down the line, either session 2 or session 3. Okay, one minute. I think it is session 3. I guess most probably. Okay, not session 3, session 4. Okay, yeah. I think I didn't run this for a long time. That's why it's coming as an exception. But the main point to understand is, with one append node, you can actually ensure that all the pre-existing nodes which were there, that will get appended at one go with one append node. But that is something which is you were not able to do on the recipe section, right? If you remember on the recipe section, we had to ensure that different kind of nodes came up. I think it was somewhere down on session 3 or 4 or 5. I don't remember now. Yeah, I think, yeah, this one only. Like, in with each transform node, we had to ensure, I'm sorry, the append node, we had to ensure that whatever number of nodes are there before that, it doesn't matter. We cannot do it at one go, right? We have to put a separate append node all the time. Okay, that is one thing. But yeah, on the data flow side, what happens is like once you have all the nodes, you can directly append them with one append node. But on recipe, if there are two or more, you have to ensure the append node gets added more of the time. So that is another difference which you can jot it down. Now we have the augment node. The augment node is the VLOOKUP, but it has limited option where you can only go for lookup and look up multiple value. But on the recipe section, that same scenario, you can go with this particular join, and under join you have different kind of joins, right? We went through that. That is the left join, right join. Okay, maybe I can select one of them as of now just to show you. I won't save it anyhow. Yeah, so we have this lookup left, right, inner, outer cross. I won't go through in this video the difference between them, but I hope you understood. Like in data flow, we have this augment, something which we have via join on the recipe side. One advantage is that on recipe, you have different kind of joins, and it's not limited to, just look up single value and look up multiple value. Fine. Then we have something called as compute expression and compute relative, and that same thing you have to do it on transform node. So this compute expression, compute relative node, which you have separately over here, that is not there separately on the recipe side. Both of them can be done through transform node. Of course, you have two types of transform node. One is disabling multiple row formula, one is enabling multiple row formula. If you enable the multiple row formula, you can do various calculation across the row, something which you have can which you have to do on compute relative node on the data flow side, fine. And you have this option of time to measure, something which you can do via transformer. On the transformer only you have that flexibility. You can, like here, of course, you can change dimension to measure, but there you can actually change from numbers to text, or from numbers to dates, or not numbers to dates, sorry, text to dates. Okay, so, or date to string. I mean, one point and click, you can actually easily do that on recipe section. Here you have to go for that nodes and do it, fine. Then then you have something then you have something called as the flatten node. So that flatten node functionality is directly available on recipe section in the transform node. Okay, so there's no separate flatten node over there. It is directly available on the transform node. Then we have this filter node. On filter node, you have two types of filter node on the data flow side, that is use SQL and without using SQL. So you have to ensure that you are very much aware of that syntax which are there. So we already walked through a proper video where I explain you what are the different kind of syntax which you have for use SQL and without SQL. Now that is something you don't have to worry on the recipe section. Of course, sometimes to build custom filters on the recipe, you need to be aware, but otherwise, by a point and click, you can easily just select the columns and put that filter. Okay, mostly it can be done in that way. So that's the thing. You don't have to worry much about that part of building that expression. So, but something here you have to actually ensure that you remember the syntax. Okay, that is the beauty, that in recipe you don't have to remember that syntax. And similarly, the slice dataset, which helps you to remove and add column, that is something which is directly present on the recipe section via this transform node. Okay, so under this transform node, you have this particular drop column. So under drop columns feature, you can actually ensure that you can keep or remove any columns. Fine. Update node is completely similar. That is fine. Now something, the SFDC register which you have, which helps you to just create data set on data flow. You cannot do any other thing by SFDC. You can just create a data set. But on recipe, one good thing is that like you have more options where you can actually not only create data set through the output node of recipe, but you can also you know create a CSV repository. Okay, just like the way I showed you, and also you can ensure that you transmit the data to some other connections, right? So that is something you can actually do it on the recipe sections via this output node. Via the SFDC register, you can just register it. Okay, that's the thing. I think I will take the help of this one. Leave 1 minute. Let me open one of the data. Okay, so that was something I wanted to walk you through. And similarly, what we have on the export, something which is available through output node on the CSV section. If you just select that CSV sections, okay, that's the thing. And other than that, I mean, more or less is the same. Just like here you can of course refresh the previews as well. So basically, so what happens in data flow is like on the data flow section, you always have to run the data flow to ensure what are the actual columns which are there. Okay, so to see that actual columns, you always have to run the data flow. And in case you make some mistake, uh, only after the data flow doesn't run, you get to know your mistake. But with recipe, the flexibility is that with each node you can actually preview the data. Of course, you cannot see all the data, which is completely fine. But at least you can preview the data, something which you cannot do on the data flow section. Okay, so that's the thing. And you have the option of always, like even if you don't want to see, if you want to disable it, you can disable it. Okay, that option is also there. But yeah, you have that extra option of enabling the preview section and refreshing it, checking the previews. Okay, so that is one beauty about recipe. And on the recipe section, I think you can increase this as well. uh, yes, so that's the thing about this one. I think here you have that option where you can increase this sampling mode. Okay, so the sample size is 2,000 rows. If you want to check more number of, you can always go for that. Fine. And this is like sample rows or some filter rows you want to check, which is fine. This is not required as of now, but you have this option of increasing the sample size where you can check more of data, preview more of data before running the recipe. Okay, so it helps you to make a better detailed decision and better detailed planning. Fine. So yeah, that's it about this video. I hope you enjoyed this. So basically, that's the whole thing of the difference which we have between data flow and recipe. And yeah, we will meet in the next video where I will discuss the advantage of recipe over data flow. But yeah, this session was more about the difference. What are the nodes which is there? What are the nodes which are there on recipe, and how few of the nodes are actually clubbed together under transform node. Okay, most of the things are clubbed under transform node in recipe section if you check it properly. And of course, through this register, what are the extra things which you can do on data recipe side, which is not possible on data flow. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Let's meet very soon in our next video. Thank you.